10 random magic cards rated. Day number 73. What day of the week are we apparently on? I think it's supposed to be Thursday, but I think a lot of people watch these out of order. So what does it matter? What's the first card of the day, Deb? You keeping us in suspense. It's Evolving Wilds. We have rated Terramorphic Expanse here before, and this is the same card. A land, tap, sack it, search your library for a basic, throw it on the table, tap, shuffle your library. This is a solid magic card, man, and I think I gave Terramorphic Expanse like a 6.5 because it's fetch land. So I will also give Evolving Wilds a 6.5. It's what it deserves. Fetch lands are very good. Fetch lands are just good. They always are. Doesn't matter how many times this card's been printed. And the fact you can get it for like a penny, I'm sure there's a version that is. Still good. Still a good card. Rugged Prairie is up next. Talk about a good card. Originally printed in Eventide. Man, that Zendikar Expedition looked really, really good. It's an awesome looking card. It does look like it's a larger piece of art that they cropped in, though. I'll say that much. But anyway, originally printed in Eventide, Rugged Prairie is a land that taps for a colorless mana. Comes into play untapped, by the way. And you can pay a red-white hybrid and tap it to add red-red, red-white, or white-white to your mana pool. This is part of a small cycle in this set. You know, Graven Cairns is the black-red one. There's a couple of other ones. And they're good. I feel like people don't like these as much as they used to, which is wild to me because I still find them very good for fixing mana, and they're effectively just dual lands. They just are dual lands, you know? So if all you have is one white mana, look at that. You can make 2 red, you know? What good mana fixing? And like, you don't even have to go crazy. You just tap it for a colorless. You know, it enters play untapped, which is kind of a rarity on a lot of dual lands. I think these are fantastic. I think if they were reprinted into standard, they would obviously see play. So yeah, I'll have to give these like a 7.5. You know, we've talked a lot about this. Dual lands, especially ones that come into play untapped, are going to get very high scores from me, like all the time. So 7.5, and that's kind of an at least score. But I'll move on to Kozilek, the Broken Reality. This was originally printed in Modern Horizons 3, the newest Modern Horizons set. 9 mana for a 9/9 legendary Eldrazi. When you cast this spell, up to 2 target players each manifest 2 cards from their hand. So they throw them face down onto the table as 2/2s. For each card manifested this way, you draw a card. Other colorless creatures you control get +3/+2. So you can target your opponent and yourself, I think is obviously what you're supposed to do with this. So that means you're going to draw 4. Yeah, it means you draw 4 at the very most, which is nuts on your 9-drop. But also, your manifested guys are much larger than their manifested guys, right? Your manifested guys are 5/4s or something, and theirs are just 2/2s. So pretty nuts when you consider this puts 19 power into play. It's pretty good, you know, but yeah. What do you rate a card like this? Like, it feels like a trap because it's 9 mana and you have to cast it, so you have to cheat cast it in some way, but you don't have to. You're in Commander, you're making mana. You're in your Colorless Matters deck where you're playing like Soul Ring and literally 24 other mana rocks that produce like extra mana, Thran Dynamo and stuff like that. I don't know, dude. Like Grim Monolith, you could probably make it work, but it's still, you know, still, dog. It's obviously good though, so I'm going to give this card a 5.73 and leave it at that, because obviously the text box is like a 10, but like, look what you have to do to get there. You know what I mean? So got to rate it that way. It's not even like close to the best of these like 9 to 12 mana Eldrazi that we've seen. So if you're going to spend that much mana on a spell, you're probably just going to play the other guys that are better. But still, God, if you do cast this, my goodness, pretty good, I have to say. But I'll leave it in like mid-high 5 territory for now. But we'll look at Grotesque Mutation next. I'm gonna regret that. That card's like a 6. It's a 6 something. Kozilek, let's amend it to a 6.1. Let's do that. Grotesque Mutation is up next. 2 mana, 1 and a black for an instant. A creature gets +3/+1 and gains lifelink till end of turn. So not a huge toughness boost. Probably still gonna die, but at least you gain a lot of life. I don't know. It's not bad. The art is something else. I'm going to give this a 3. 2.9. Brainstorm is up next. Banned in Historic and restricted in Vintage. That's Brainstorm, everybody. This is a single blue mana for an instant. Draw 3, then take 2 cards from your hand. put them on top of your library in any order. Now, I do like this Christopher Rush art. I was just praising Christopher Rush the other day, but the best Brainstorm art is obviously Mercadian Masks. This by Dieter Lizzie. This is great. This is it's like the next best thing to an Ancestral Recall, and boy, is that good company to be in. Brainstorm is disgusting. Drawing 3 for a single blue, and I know a lot of players might look at this, especially newer players, and be like, but it only really puts 1 card in your hand. Like, you see the top 3 cards of your library, you put either the worst 2 back, or maybe you put the best one on top of your library because you played this at instant speed, end of turn, whatever. And you'll just draw the best of those cards, and it's kind of more protected on top of your library than it is in your hand some of the time. So Brainstorm is sick. You can obviously put the worst 2 cards from your hand on top and then shuffle your library somehow. A fetch land is the most traditional way to do that, but I'm not telling you anything you don't know. This is just for the brand new players in the room, and I know there's like 4 of you, so there's a lot of ways to abuse Brainstorm and just kind of make it Ancestral Recall anyway. Draw 3 for a single blue at instant speed is completely busted, and Ancestral Recall was a mistake, which is just, in case you don't know that, it's just a single blue mana instant speed, draw 3, no downside. Do nothing but draw 3. It's actually target player draws 3. Just, you can use that in sneaky ways. But this, on the other hand, was still, even at a powered down form of Ancestral Recall, still a mistake. It really was. So I'm going to give Brainstorm an 8.5. It's probably going to be the best card we look at today, and it's, I think, the best card we've looked at this week. And I don't really know how you top it. Brainstorm is gross. I really should give this card like an 8.9. This card is like the second best card draw spell ever printed, so 8.9. No. Ancestral Recall is a 10. Ancestral Recall is a 10. I keep like amending my score on this, but I think it deserves it. Ancestral Recall is one of the very few 10s in Magic history. What do you give it 10? Ancestral Recall and what? Black Lotus, right? And there's really not a whole lot of other 10s that have that have ever been printed. So I'm actually going to give Brainstorm a 9.1. And I think that's where I'll stop spinning the wheel on this card. But yeah, 9.1. This card's still ludicrous, even in a powered down form. Next is Macetail Histrodon. I probably won't go on as long about this. Originally printed in Legions, 7 mana, 6 in a red for a 4/4 first strike haste. It's also a beast. You can cycle it for 3. That's 50% more than it would normally cost. It has haste. So in limited, maybe, but especially back then limited, where, creature power creep wasn't as much of a thing. You might actually cast this from time to time, but I still think it's mostly poop. So I'll give it a 2.3. Well, no, let's give it a 2.7 because you can cycle it. It's probably the best thing you can do with the card. Chaos Warp. We've rated it before, I believe. Probably the best red removal spell of all time. Have we rated this, or have we rated a card similar to Chaos Warp? I think maybe that's what's happened. I'd have to give Chaos Warp because I don't remember what I gave it last time. But again, I think we've rated similar cards, but not necessarily Chaos Warp. This is the first real test of my memory. 73 videos in, since we started the series. But I think that no matter what I gave it last time, if we reviewed it before, I'm not going to count it. I'm going to give this card like an 8. Just for Commander red playability, because it's one of the few Commander cards in red that can take care of any permanent. And I might be being really generous here is the word I was looking for. Looking for a word. It's jealous, generous. There's the word. I'm going to have to give this an 8. I'll stick with it. I think it's like one of the best red removal spells ever printed. I really do. I really do. And you can use it on your own stuff. Did you know you can use it on your own? Let's look at the next card, which is Plated Spider, originally printed in Urza's Destiny. I have resolved this card in my life. This is 5 mana, 4 and a green for a 4/4 spider with reach. That's the entire card. So back in the day, my thought was like, oh, I pay an extra mana and I get double the power on my giant spider. Must be good. Turns out it was bad. Not good. Not great, but still. I guess this is a card that could still print directly into standard right now, and you'd play it in limited, right? 5 mana for a 4/4 in limited's not horrible, and reach is pretty good because it blocks and at least trades with most big flyers in a set. So I don't know, like a 2.6, something like that. Well, it's not worth that much. Gifts Ungiven, everybody. Originally printed in Champions. of Kamigawa, an iconic card. Really love this art too. D. Alexander Gregory. Good style here. This is 4 mana, 3 and a blue for an instant. Search your library for 4 cards with different names and reveal them. Target opponent chooses 2 of those cards. Put the chosen cards into your yard and the rest into your hand. Shuffle your library. Banned in Commander. That's such, its reputation precedes it. Such that it is banned in Commander, because searching your library for 4 cards and getting 2 of them would be pretty nuts. And you're really getting all 4 of them, because the 2 that you put in your graveyard, you kind of draw anyway if you're playing Magic right. And you should be. So, yeah. I didn't know this was banned in Commander, but I guess it does make sense in a lot of ways why it would be. Instant speed tutor 4 is obviously busted. I'm actually waffling back and forth on whether I should rate this card, because it's not legal in Commander, which is kind of the stated goal of this, is to rate these cards for casual Commander, but it's legal in every other format that it should be legal in, so I think it's worth rating. I will give Gifts Ungiven I'll give this card an 8, and I feel like that's really high in a modern context, but based on all the things that it's done throughout its history as a Magic card, I think it's earned that 8. I really do. This is really, really good. It always has been, but I'll move on to Goblin Javelineer. This is a red mana for a 1/1 Goblin Warrior with haste. When it becomes blocked, it deals 1 damage to target creature blocking it. That's the entire thing, but it saw play a little bit in Standard, and I mean a very, very little bit, because Adventures in the Forgotten Realms didn't have a whole lot of great, aggro or goblins decks. Well, it had a good mono red deck, but this wasn't always a part of it. But I saw it from time to time back in the day. It's not terrible. It's better than Raging Goblin. We've seen a lot of upgraded Raging Goblins over the last just few years, but they mostly bury this card. But still, a 1-drop with haste that can take out some 2-drops is okay. So I'm gonna give this a 3.79, something like that. I'll move on to Oppressive Rays, printed in Journey into Nyx and Magic 2015, for what it's worth. A white mana for an aura that enchants a creature. The creature can't attack or block unless its controller pays 3. Activated abilities of the creature cost 3 more to activate. It does not say unless they're mana abilities either. Usually they make a special clause for mana abilities, but it's kind of neat. It's a pacifism they can pay for, but you're paying half price for pacifism. But most of the time, I think I'd rather just play a pacifism effect or an upgraded pacifism effect. We've seen a lot of those over the last few years too. So not like the biggest fan in the world. I will give this, I don't usually love cards in general that can be invalidated later on. But tempo could be good on this, but tempo is obviously not that important all the time. So let's give this a 3.4. I think I'll stick with it there. It's actually, again, if you're playing like 1v1s and you're a very fast aggro deck, you could use this tempo to your advantage pretty easily, I think. The fact that it costs, 1 less than pacifism, you get 50% reduction in the cost of pacifism. That means that you get an extra mana to spend on your turn as an aggro deck that's invaluable, and you want to kill them by turn 4 anyway. So I could see playing this in a very specific aggro deck in a very specific point in time that we are no longer in. So I can't really rate the card too high. We'll move on to Darkling Stalker, only ever printed in Tempest. I love this card just for the art alone. This is 4 mana, 3 and a black for a 1/1 spirit. You can pay a black to regenerate it, but you can also pay a black and have it get +1/+1 until end of turn. This is apparently the final card of the day. I have died to this card, and I have resolved this card plenty of times. By the way, I got to give a shout out again to Susan Van Camp here. Really just effective art. That is born into my brain at this point. The moment I see it, I'm like, oh yeah, this card. So I love this card, just for like sentimental reasons. But I have spoken before about my buddy Ryan had a like casual kind of kitchen table blue-black control deck back in the day with like Sift and a couple of bad cards in it that was nonetheless a pretty powerful deck for the kitchen table. And this at one point was one of his win conditions in that deck. If he has enough mana, once he gets it down, it never dies. It's just regenerated no matter what you do. And then once he's controlled the board state enough, he'll just give it +1/+1 a million times because he's got like 12 mana by now, and he'll just kill you with this. And it was actually fairly effective. I played this in a sort of mono-black aggro deck, and it wasn't great, but I've resolved it a few times with that deck. Regenerate is a powerful ability. It really is. If you have the mana for it, Regenerate's still good. I could recommend this for like a cube, an old school cube or something. I think it's a pretty good card for like a beginner's cube or underpower cube or something like that. I think there are cubes for it, but I don't think it's seeing play anywhere else, period. But this is a cool effect. It really is. You know, this is kind of a carry enhance for the old school players. They'll know what I'm talking about. It's kind of a carry enhance, but in some ways better. You know, you're probably pretty heavy into black mana anyway if you're playing a card like this, so the ability of carry enhance to be activated with the generic mana isn't as important in a lot of these decks, right? But so in that case, what I'm saying is it mitigates the fact that you have to pay a black mana for Darkling Stalker's activated, you know, pump ability. This is back when black used to get creatures with pump abilities. The last one we saw was just a few sets ago. I think it's still playable in standard, but it was kind of a callback to when black used to have this ability more often. And I wish that we saw more of those, man. It's just a cool ability. But I'm going to give Stalker like a 3.4, and that is only because of the regenerate, but it's also because of some of the good times. I want to give this card a 4, but I can't quite bring myself to do it. It's not good anymore, but there was a time where if you were not a good Magic player, and your friends weren't either, you'd play this card. Anyway, that's all I've got for today, guys. I will see you tomorrow. Bye.